Number 10. Zodiac. Most people are usually quiet about their crimes, but Zodiac, as he dubbed himself, was anything but. From 1968 to 1969, he terrorized San Francisco with his spree, taunting the police with his coded letters to the local paper. He had at least 5 terminations directly connected to him, although he claims to have ended the lives of 37. His terror began with Betty Lou Jensen and David Arthur Faraday. They were found lying outside of their bullet-peppered car. Jensen was found passed away at the scene with 5 gunshot wounds to her back, while Faraday passed away from a bullet to the head en route to the hospital. Half a year later, a couple who parked their car 4 miles away from that crime scene was also gunned down. 1 injured and 1 gone from the world. The survivor, Michael Mago, was able to give a description of the butcher. He described a heavyset white man around 5'8". It would be the Zodiac himself that would give the police the remaining evidence. At 12:48 a.m. that same night, police received a strange call. "I wish to report a double slaughter. If you go 1 mile east in Columbus Parkway to a public park, you will find the people in a brown car. They've been shot with a 9mm Luger. I also ended those people last year. Goodbye." A month later, newspapers received the first letter from the Zodiac. He demanded them publish the letter on the front page or he'd go on a rampage. The letter described the slaughters, all written with mysterious ciphers that seemed to form a code. This was a common theme with the other letters he would send, all signed with a crossed circle symbol. One such letter was decoded by a high school teacher and his wife. Number 9. Noises. In December 2016, a CIA officer checked into the American Embassy's health office in Havana, suffering from nausea, headache, and dizziness. Days later, 2 more CIA officers reported similar ailments. By late 2018, the number grew to 26 Americans and 13 Canadians experiencing nausea, hearing loss, vertigo, nosebleeds, and focusing issues. In all the cases, victims claimed that the symptoms were triggered by a strange noise they'd heard at their homes or in hotel rooms. One person said the noise was high-pitched. Another described a beam of sound pointed into their rooms. Some insisted that the noise more closely resembled marbles rolling along a floor. The illnesses confounded medical experts. Doctors at the University of Pennsylvania who examined some of the victims diagnosed concussion-like symptoms but found no sign they'd suffered any concussions. I know what you must be thinking. The Cuban government is up to something, right? The Cubans vehemently deny they're responsible, and many American investigators believe them. That's because they still don't know what or who made the victims sick. Was it a new type of weapon? The CIA claims it doesn't know of any weaponry that could cause these symptoms. What about ultrasound? One theory holds that a pair of covert eavesdropping devices placed too close to each other by Cuban agents may have inadvertently produced such a reaction, like the kind of feedback you would hear when someone stands too close to a microphone or 2 phones that are calling each other in the same room. But the FBI has found no evidence to substantiate that argument. In fact, ultrasound is above the range of human hearing. Number 8. D.B. Cooper. November 24th, 1971. Dan Cooper was a passenger on Northwest Airlines Flight 305 from Portland to Seattle, a 30-minute flight. Pretty short. He was described by passengers and flight attendants as a man in his mid-40s wearing a dark suit, black tie with a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and a neatly pressed white-collared shirt. He took his seat, lit a cigarette, because you could do that back then, and politely ordered a bourbon and soda, for which he paid cash. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a 23-year-old flight attendant who ignored it, assuming it was just the man's phone number. "Miss, you'd better look at that note," Dan Cooper told her. "I have a bomb." The note's exact wording is part of the mystery, since Cooper reclaimed it after the flight attendant read it, but his demands were $200,000 in negotiable American currency, worth about $1 million today, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane on arrival. The flight attendant brought the demands to the captain. The airline's president authorized full cooperation. The other passengers had no idea what was happening, having been told that landing was delayed due to mechanical difficulties. At 5:39 p.m., the plane landed, an airline employee delivered a cash-filled knapsack and parachutes, and Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 flight attendants to leave the plane. During refueling, Cooper outlined his plan to the crew, a southeasterly course towards Mexico with 1 further refueling stop in Nevada. 2 hours later, the plane took off. When it landed in Reno, Cooper's absence was noted. Cooper, from whom the media mistakenly referred to as DB Cooper, was never seen or heard from again. No parachute was found, and the ransom money was never used. In 1980, a young boy on vacation with his family in Oregon found several packets of the ransom money, identifiable by serial number, leading to an intense search of the area for Cooper or his remains. Nothing was ever found. For a time, it was speculated that Mad Men's fictional Don Draper was the man who would become Cooper. In the real world, a parachute strap was found in 2007 at one of Cooper's possible landing sites. Every year, the mystery gets closer to us and further at the same time. Maybe 2023 will finally reveal the truth. Number 7, Area 51. Area 51 in southern Nevada is a US military base, the very existence of which was unconfirmed until 2013, when the CIA was obliged to respond to a Freedom of Information Act request from 2005. Based on historical evidence, it would appear that Area 51 supports the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapons. Public satellite images, such as those available on Google Maps, don't provide insight. Even those with security clearance to visit Area 51 are transported there from Las Vegas via an airline called Janet, whose airplanes are unmarked and which shrouds its windows upon descent. The intense secrecy around Area 51 has sparked rumors that the government uses it to house crashed UFOs and conduct lab tests on aliens. Other theories about what Area 51 is used for include research on time travel, research on teleportation, meetings with extraterrestrials, development of a means for weather control, and activities related to a shadowy one-world government. Where these theories come from is as much as a mystery as Area 51 itself, but one thing is certain: people love a good conspiracy theory. At one point, conspiracy theorists believed that the moon landing in 1969 had been faked. It wasn't. And if you think it was, discuss about it in the comments. Number 6, Paula Jean Weldon. Paula Jean Weldon, who was 18, was a sophomore at Bennington College on December 1st, 1946, the day she told her roommate, Elizabeth Parker, she was going for a long walk, but failed to return. A search focused primarily on Vermont's Long Trail, a 270-mile trail that cut through Vermont to the Canadian border, where local witnesses reported having seen her. The trail yielded no clues, however, and soon what the Bennington Banner refers to as tantalizing and unquestionably strange leads began to materialize. These include claims by a Massachusetts waitress that she'd served an agitated young woman matching Paula's description. Upon learning of this particular lead, Paula's father disappeared for 36 hours, supposedly in pursuit of the lead, but it was nevertheless a strange move that led to his becoming a prime suspect in Paula's disappearance. Soon, stories began circulating that Paula's home life was not nearly as idyllic as her parents had told the police. Apparently, Paula had not returned home for Thanksgiving the week prior, and she may have been distraught about a disagreement with her father. For his part, Paula's father posited a theory that Paula was distraught about a boy she liked and that perhaps the boy should have been a suspect. Over the next decade, a local Bennington man twice bragged to friends that he knew where Paula's body was buried. He was unable to lead the police to any body, however, let alone Paula's. With no evidence of a crime, no body, and no forensic clues, the case grew colder, and the theories grew stranger, including those linked to the paranormal. New England author and occult researcher Joseph Citro came up with the Bennington Triangle theory, which explained the disappearance as linked to a special energy that attracts outer space visitors, who would have taken Paula with them back to their world. Number 5, Missing Settlement. In 1587, John White led a group of people from Britain to found an English colony, settling on Roanoke Island, one of a chain of barrier islands now known as the Outer Banks of North Carolina. White left for more supplies, but on his return 3 years later, found the colony meticulously abandoned, with all houses and fortifications dismantled with care. Before he'd left the colony, White had instructed the colonists that, if they were taken by force, they were to carve a cross into a nearby tree, but there was no cross. The only clue was the word Croatoan, the name of a native tribe allied with the English, which was carved into a post. White took this to mean that the colonists had moved to Croatoan Island, now known as Hatteras. Ensuing investigations turned up claims that the colonists had been slaughtered by the Powhatan tribe, but there is no archaeological evidence of this, and a recent re-examination of the primary sources indicates that any massacre that occurred was not of this particular group of colonists, but rather a group of colonists who had arrived earlier. Number 4, Tunguska. On the morning of June 30th, 1908, 770 square miles of forest in Serbia, Russia, were flattened by what would have appeared to have been an explosion, except that there were no witnesses and no other evidence. The phenomenon, known as the Tunguska event, has been classified by scientists as the largest impact event in recorded history, yet no impact crater has ever been found, which would be an important earmark of an impact event. Thus, scientists can only surmise what may have happened, which may be that an asteroid exploded over the Earth and the destruction that ensued beneath it in Siberia was the result of after effects. Number 3. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. On March 8, 2014, while flying from Malaysia to China, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 passengers and crew members seems to have vanished into thin air. The multinational search effort, the largest in aviation history, has turned up a mere 20 pieces of aircraft debris. The Prime Minister of Malaysia has declined to comment other than to say that the aircraft disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The lack of closure has engendered multiple theories, many of which are considered conspiracy theories, which, according to Harvard professor Cass Sunstein, are a natural product of horrific and disastrous situations because such events make people angry, fearful, and looking for a target. Theories include hijacking, capture by the United States, crew self-execution, it was reported that the pilot was having marital problems, a fire aboard the aircraft, vertical entry into the sea, a meteor strike, and even alien abduction. Notwithstanding the passage of 3 years and the expenditure of $160 million scouring thousands of square miles of ocean, the disappearance of Malaysian Air Flights 370 and the 239 people aboard remains a mystery. Number 2. The Cyphers Sculpture. The main part of this sculpture is located in the northwest corner of the new headquarters building courtyard outside of the agency's cafeteria. The sculpture comprises 4 large copper plates with other elements consisting of water, wood, plants, red and green granite, white quartz, and petrified wood. The most prominent feature is a large vertical S-shaped copper screen resembling a scroll or a piece of paper emerging from a computer printer, half of which consists of encrypted text. The characters are all found within the 26 letters of the Latin alphabet, along with question marks, and are cut out of the copper plates. The main sculpture contains 4 separate enigmatic messages, 3 of which have been deciphered. In addition to the main part of the sculpture, Jim Sanborn also placed other pieces of the art at the CIA grounds, such as several large granite slabs with sandwiched copper sheets outside the entrance to the new headquarters building. Several Morse code messages are found on these copper sheets, and one of the stone slabs has an engraving of a compass rose pointing to a lodestone. Other elements of Sanborn's installation include a landscaped garden area, a fish pond with opposing wooden benches, a reflecting pool, and other pieces of stone, including a triangle-shaped black stone slab. The name Kryptos comes from the ancient Greek word for hidden, and the theme of the sculpture is intelligence gathering. The cost of the sculpture in 1988 was $250,000, worth $500,000 in 2016. The ciphertext of the left-hand side of the sculpture of the main sculpture contains 869 characters in total, 865 letters, and 4 question marks. In April 2006, however, Sanborn released information stating that a letter was omitted from this side of Kryptos for aesthetic reasons to keep the sculpture visually balanced. There are also 3 misspelled words in the plain text of the deciphered first 3 passages, which Sanborn has said was intentional, and 3 letters, YAR, near the beginning of the bottom half of the left side are the only characters on the sculpture in superscript. The right-hand side of the sculpture comprises of a keyed Vigenère inscription tableau, consisting of 867 letters. One of the lines of the Vigenère tableau has an extra character, L. Bauer, Link, and Mall suggest that this may be a reference to the Hill cipher as an encryption method for the 4th passage of the sculpture. However, Sanborn omitted the extra letter from small Kryptos models that he sold. Number 1. The Somerton Man. The Somerton Man was an unidentified man whose body was found on the 1st of December 1948 on the beach of Somerton Park, a suburb of Adelaide, South Australia. The case is also known after the Persian phrase tamam shud, meaning is over or is finished, which was printed on a scrap of paper found months later in the fob pocket of the man's trousers. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of Rubaiyat, authored by 12th century poet Omar Khayyam. Following a public appeal by the police, the book from which the page had been torn out was located. On the inside back cover, detectives read through indentations left from previous handwriting, a local telephone number, another unidentified number, and text that resembled a coded message. The text has not been deciphered or interpreted in any way that satisfies authorities on the case. The case had been considered, since the early stages of the police investigation, one of Australia's most profound mysteries. There has been intense speculation ever since regarding the identity of the victim, the cause of his passing, and the events leading up to it. Public interest in the case remains significant for several reasons. The passing occurred at a time of heightened international tensions following the beginning of the Cold War, the apparent involvement of a secret code, the possible use of an undetectable poison, and the inability of authorities to identify the passed away man. On the 26th of July 2022, Adelaide University professor Derek Abbott, in association with genealogist Colleen M. Fitzpatrick, claimed to have identified the man as Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in 1905, based on genetic genealogy from DNA of the man's hair. South Australia Police and Forensic Science South Australia have not verified the result, but South Australia Police said that they were cautiously optimistic about it. Number 10. Gabby Patito. If you've followed the case of 22-year-old Gabby Patito, you'll know that social media has played an imperative role in the investigation. Patito documented her road trip with her fiance at the time, Brian Laundrie, via Instagram, making sure to vlog and capture their favorite moments. Unknowingly, she provided investigators with a timeline of events leading up to her disappearance. Gabby soon went missing, and over on TikTok, a wealth of users were actively trying to piece together clues on the case. The hashtag Gabby Patito earned more than 500 million views, seeing users break down footage and come up with their own theories. Not only did TikTok raise attention to the Patito case, it also brought forward TikToker Miranda Baker. Baker claimed that she had picked up a person of interest, Brian Laundrie, saying he kind of hurried out of the car and then was like, "I'm going to find someone else to hitchhike." And we're like, okay. It was a weird situation. As we know, Gabby Patito's body had been found and Brian Laundrie was named a key suspect by the police. After police interviews with the family of Brian and further investigation by police, Brian's body was found in Florida Park. Number 9. Alyssa Turney. Miss Turney did not only campaign for justice, she also became an amateur sleuth. She recorded conversations with her father and shared the clips on YouTube. She pored over old home videos and posted footage on TikTok. At one point, she described efforts to locate her sister's body. Alyssa was extremely sweet, strong, and sweet, Miss Turney said. The sisters lost their mother to cancer when they were young and were mostly raised by Mr. Turney, Miss Turney's biological father and Alyssa's stepfather and legal guardian. Of course, we fought like normal sisters over toys, over hair, over clothes, Miss Turney said. But when she was on the cusp of becoming a teenager, she said she and her sister grew closer. "I didn't really feel the need to tattle as much," she said. "I was finally accepted into the cool kids club." That was just before Alyssa disappeared. Mr. Turney has been accused of abusing, surveying, and controlling Alyssa, and Miss Turney has publicly shared some of the video footage he recorded. In one clip from 2000, it appears that Mr. Turney sat in a parking lot to film Alyssa while she worked at a fast food restaurant. At Mr. Turney's residence in Phoenix, they found 26 pipe bombs and 3 incendiary devices, according to an FBI statement. In an interview with ABC News in 2009, Mr. Turney suggested that the explosives were not meant to hurt innocent people. He also said that he had not ended his stepdaughter. In response to questions about whether he had been a controlling parent, he said that he had been trying to keep Alyssa safe. "I look back at it because she ran away as a result of that," he added. "Yeah, of course I feel bad about it." In 2010, Mr. Turney pleaded guilty to the unlawful possession of unregistered destructive devices, a felony, and was sentenced to a decade in prison. He served 7 years. Miss Turney's social media campaign kicked off around the time of his release. A lawyer for Mr. Turney did not immediately respond to a request for comment. It was unclear how Miss Turney's online efforts affected the case, and Detective Anderson did not say what evidence prompted the slaughter charge this month. Number 8. Sophia Juarez. Sophia disappeared shortly after 8 p.m. on Tuesday, February 4th, 2003, one day before her 5th birthday. She was at home with her mother playing with some of her young uncles. Jose Lopez Torres, her grandmother's boyfriend, was preparing to leave for a nearby convenience store and had asked the children if they wanted to join him. Although the others refused, Sophia decided to take him up on the offer at the last minute. Torres, however, was not aware she had changed her mind and left the house without Sophia. Around this time, Sophia asked her mother for $1 to spend at the store. Maria watched Sophia leave the room and heard her close the door as she left the house. Although the case of Sophia Juarez is yet to be solved at the time of recording, TikTok did provide investigators with somewhat of a lead earlier in the year. 4-year-old Juarez went missing in 2003 after being kidnapped outside of her home in Kennewick, Washington. Back in May 2021, a TikTok video went viral after a 22-year-old woman claimed in Spanish that she might have been kidnapped. Investigators looked into the clip, and although the case is yet to be solved, Kennewick police did reveal that they had a new lead regarding a highly credible witness. Number 7. Jessica Lewis and Austin Wenner. A US landlord had been found guilty of executing 2 tenants in a case that made headlines when TikTok refused to take down videos of the victims' bodies. Michael Dudley of Burien, near Seattle, was convicted of ending Jessica Lewis, 35, and Austin Cash Wenner, 27. In June 2020, Dudley, who was 64, shot and mutilated the victims before disposing of their remains in suitcases. Later that month, 3 teenagers were making TikTok videos on a Seattle beach when they found the bodies. Their footage of the discovery was viewed more than 30 million times, but TikTok initially said the video did not violate their terms of service. The company came under pressure from relatives of the victims, and the video was taken down several months later, although it is unknown whether it was deleted by TikTok or the teenager who initially posted it. The 3 teenagers called police as soon as they discovered the suitcases, leading to the execution investigation. The court in Seattle saw testimony from a neighbor who had heard gunshots and a man pleading for his life. Police initially went to the home, but nobody answered. Dudley was later arrested. Court documents indicate Lewis and Wenner got into a dispute over unpaid rent with Dudley, in whose home they were living. Dudley will be sentenced in March and faces a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 6. Claire Miller. Claire is charged with ending Helen Miller, who is 19, who had cerebral palsy, while Helen was asleep in her bed last year. Claire was in court for Workman's announcement at 1:30 p.m. and cried intermittently throughout the proceeding. She sobbed heavily after learning that she would face adult proceedings, which would likely carry a longer sentence and be less focused on rehabilitation as the juvenile system. Claire hugged her mother after the ruling before being let out of the courtroom. Her parents had asked the judge to transfer her case to the juvenile system, saying they had already lost one daughter and did not want to lose their second daughter as well. Extensive mental health treatment is necessary, Workman said. More time beyond what the juvenile court jurisdiction permits is necessary to treat her and to assure she is healthy and not a danger to herself or the community. Claire has around 4 years and 10 months until her 21st birthday, at which point juvenile court would no longer have jurisdiction over her case. The ruling came after 3 days of testimony in late June, with competing versions of a perfectionist girl who had been bullied and suffered a psychotic break, or someone obsessed with criminal cases of execution, who wouldn't engage with therapists and was coming up with attention-seeking excuses. The case of Claire Miller wasn't necessarily solved via TikTok, but the platform definitely raised awareness and intensified police focus on the teen. Number 5. Michael Lee Dudley. This was included in a point previously, but I wanted to dive deeper into it on why TikTok was a part of the situation. While recording a TikTok, a group of teens discovered a black suitcase washed up on the coast of Duwamish Head, West Seattle, Washington on June 19, 2020. The teens were unsure of what was inside the suitcase, but noticed a foul smell coming out of it. Becoming concerned with what contents may lie within the mysterious suitcase, they called the police. Police later arrived to find Jessica Lewis's and Austin Wenner's dismembered remains, which were in garbage bags within the suitcase. A medical examination revealed the suspect shot 27-year-old Wenner and 35-year-old Lewis at least 10 days before the teens discovered their bodies. The investigation revealed that 62-year-old Michael Dudley, after finding evidence of a recently cleaned and repainted apartment in which the couple previously resided, police charged Dudley with second-degree execution. He is currently being held on a $5 million bond awaiting his trial. Number 4. Isabella Guzman. Isabella Guzman recently gained popularity on TikTok for her odd behaviors during her 2013 trial for the execution of her mother. On August 28th, 18-year-old Guzman stabbed her mother, Yoon Mi Hoy, 79 times, claiming Hoy and her stepfather abused her for years. In Aurora, Colorado, court found her not guilty by reason of insanity, and she currently resides at a mental facility. In 2020, TikTok users found footage of Guzman's trial in which she acted strangely and made faces towards the camera. TikTokers would use clips from the trial and add Ava Max's Sweet But Psycho song over it, according to CBS 4 Denver. In November 2020, Guzman conducted a virtual interview in which she requested to be released from her mental facility. Miller claims she was a different person when she ended her mother and that she is mentally stable now. Number 3. Kalisha Williams. A disturbing TikTok video showed the moments before 16-year-old Kalisha Pinky Williams lost her life. After shooting a dance video for TikTok, an unknown suspect ended her in her hotel room at Hyatt Regency Atlanta on December 26, 2020. According to International Business Times, the initial video made at 12:02 in the morning showed just a few seconds of Williams dancing before she stops the video once her door opens. By 12:32 in the morning that same day, Williams is found gone. Police arrested a teen boy, but the actual suspect and motive for the senseless ending are still unknown. Williams' mother, April Smith, believes the mother that chaperoned and paid for her daughter's hotel room should have accountability for her execution as well. Her name was on the hotel room for these minors. So I feel like she should be held accountable for my daughter's passing as well. Fox Atlanta 5 reports. Number 2, Zachary Latham. Problems began to arise between 18-year-old Zachary Latham and his neighbor William T. Durham Sr. after Durham's wife Catherine complained about Latham's reckless driving in their New Jersey neighborhood. Latham was an avid TikTok user, even documenting the incident and taunting the Durham family with several other videos. The fights between Latham and Durham Sr. came to a fatal end on May 4th, 2020. According to NJ.com, a brutal battle between the Durham family and Latham and his friends ensued after Durham Sr. and his son visited Latham's property to address his behavior. Latham allegedly exited his home with a stun gun and multiple knives, which he used to stab Durham Sr. numerous times. The extent of Durham's injuries led to his passing hours later at the hospital. Latham's wife allegedly filmed the attack on her cell phone, which Latham hoped to gain TikTok fame. Police arrested and charged Latham with first-degree execution, 2 counts of second-degree aggravated assault, and additional weapons charges. Durham's wife and 2 sons also received charges relating to trespassing and assault. Latham claims that he used self-defense to protect himself from Durham Sr. and his sons. Latham received a release from a Superior Court judge until his trial, but he is back in jail after his recent arrest for allegedly threatening a motorist. Latham continued to speak on his case with a new TikTok account, but authorities quickly shut it down. Number 1, Bryan Coburger. On TikTok, conspiracy theories ran rampant in the absence of an arrest. True crime lovers suspected the roommates, who were asleep and unharmed at the time of the executions of the 4 Idaho University students. Others blamed a food truck owner who has been seen interacting with the victims that same night. Both had been ruled out by police as suspects. The allegations have gone so far as to elicit a lawsuit from a professor after a TikTok user falsely claimed she planned the executions. Idaho police announced arrest in endings for 4 University of Idaho students. Most people don't stop and think about the ramifications of what it means for these speculations to be public, says Pamela Rutledge, a media psychologist who studies human behavior. What started as curiosity has spiraled into an online witch hunt, resulting in harassment, defamation, and doxing. Unless you are directly involved in the investigative process, publicly accusing anyone should be off limits, says Tristan Engels, a licensed clinical forensic psychologist. This is how innocent people lose jobs, families, and even their lives. People are going down these rabbit holes and they're hyper-focusing on one individual and attacking that individual, said Tana Davis, an Idaho State Police trooper who is helping the Moscow Police Department handle media interview requests. Bryan Coburger was later arrested, and maybe it was the help of some TikTok users, but a lot of them really just harmed instead of helped. Number 10, carbon monoxide. This is a crazy story. So one user on Reddit stated a bunch of things in a post regarding post-it notes that they kept finding. They said this: on the 15th of April, I found a yellow post-it note in a handwriting that wasn't mine on my desk, reminding me of some errands I had to do, but told literally nobody about. While odd, I chalked it up to something I did in my sleep, thinking maybe in my half-awake state I scrawled it so it didn't appear to be my handwriting. I threw it out and thought little of it. On the 19th, I found another post-it note on the back of my desk chair, in the same handwriting as the previous note, telling me to make sure I saved my documents. I was freaked out, but there were no other signs of a break-in, so I set up a webcam in my house aimed at my desk and used a security cam app for it to record after detecting movement. On the 28th, I woke up to find another post-it note, this one saying, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you, but it's important we do." I immediately checked the webcam's folder on my computer and found nothing from the night before, but my computer's recycling bin had been emptied, which I am certain I did not do recently, indicating someone had noticed the webcam and deleted the files. They were just saved straight to a folder on my desktop called webcam. Today, on the 1st of May, I found another post-it note, this time on the outside of my door with nothing written on it. And there also appeared to be post-its on many other doors in my apartment complex, all blank in varying colors. Another user, and probably aspiring detective, responded with this: "You seem sincere, and this doesn't appear to be a plot of a Ray Bradbury short story. It's possible that your landlord is leaving notes inside your apartment, but they don't make any sense in the context you're describing them. It's likely that you are writing the notes yourself, but you are forgetting. Do you use post-it notes as reminders in any other parts of your life or job?" Yes, this might be a mental health issue. You might be experiencing some sort of dissociative disorder, or it might be a physical problem. You mentioned that you have a very unusual narrow bedroom with no windows. Is there a chance that you are not getting enough ventilation when you sleep, or that there is a carbon monoxide leak in the building? A cheap CO detector, which you should have anyway, is a fast way to find out. You'll also have really bad headaches. It turns out their landlord had stuffed their ventilation pipes with a rag and flooded the tenant's house with carbon monoxide. The user who responded likely saved the OP's life with their suggestion of a CO detector. Number 9. Listening device. While staying at a hotel in Wales, for some reason, one Redditor's cousin unscrewed their power outlet in the room and found some sort of device hidden in the wall. They sent an image to their cousin and they took to the subreddit r/whatisthisthing and asked fellow Redditors about the object. Turns out, a user found the exact model of the device and linked it. Here's the post. Found it. This seems to be almost the same like you found. Seems to be a cheap GSM bug where the battery was replaced by a mains power supply. Can you confirm that it has a SIM card? I think the case is clear now. It is a long-range listening device using the GSM phone network. With the power supply, and if it was well hidden, it could have been there for quite a long time. Was definitely used to spy. That's some scary stuff right there. I think I'll pack a screwdriver next time I'm staying at a hotel. Number 8. Luca Magnotta. In 2005, Magnotta, who was going by his birth name at the time, was convicted of 1 count of impersonation and 3 counts of fraud. He had taken advantage of a mentally disabled young woman by convincing her to apply for credit cards and then using those credit cards himself to purchase over $10,000 worth of goods. He was also accused of assaulting the woman, although that charge was later dropped. He pleaded guilty and received a 9-month conditional sentence with 12 months of probation. The court noted at the time that Magnotta had significant psychiatric issues and did not always take his medication. In 2010, Magnotta posted a YouTube video titled "One Boy, Two Kittens," in which he deliberately suffocated 2 kittens in a plastic bag with a vacuum cleaner. He later published a second video of himself, this time drowning a cat in a bathtub. A third video showed him feeding a cat to a python. In January 2011, a private Facebook group identified Magnotta as the person in these videos. Animal rights activist groups subsequently offered a $5,000 reward for bringing him to justice. He was initially dubbed the Vacuum Kitten Butcher by the online internet activists. The internet community, which had identified Magnotta, reported him to authorities, warning that after committing acts of animal cruelty, he might pose a threat to humans. Their investigation was later chronicled in the 2019 true crime docuseries Don't F with Cats. In February 2011, Toronto police began investigating Magnotta in connection with the videos, after receiving a complaint from the Ontario Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. The OSPCA also contacted the Royal Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in Britain, the American FBI, and police in Montreal due to the suspect's extensive travels. After a long investigation and a new subreddit being created dedicated for the manhunt of Luca Magnotta after he executed a human being, he was caught and identified by Reddit users to be inside of an internet cafe in Berlin. Number 7. Unlawful officer. Walter Scott was a black man who was fatally shot by police officer Michael Slager in South Carolina. Scott was unarmed and running away from Slager when he was shot 8 times. A bystander filmed the whole thing on his phone, and the footage was widely seen online. A Canadian Redditor named Daniel Vauchart stabilized the original shaky footage so the order of events was clear. A cinematographer by trade, Vauchart says he got involved because the truth is the foundation of everything. While stabilizing the footage, he spotted a piece of evidence that could potentially corroborate the police officer's defense. In the police report for the incident, it was said that after handcuffing the man they had just shot 8 times, CPR was performed. In reality, the video shows that no CPR was performed at all. Later on, a second officer arrives, puts on blue medical gloves, and attends to Mr. Scott, but is not shown performing CPR. As sirens wail in the background, a third officer later arrives, apparently with a medical kit, but is also not seen performing CPR. This means that on the professional account of what happened there, the police just straight up lied on their report. It's almost unfathomable why you would handcuff a man whom you just shot 8 times, then lie about how you tried saving the man's life with CPR when nothing of the sort happened. The worst part about them lying is that they saw the guy who was filming and yelled at the individual. They knew the guy was recording and saw everything unfold and still lied on the report, thinking they could get away with it. The officer involved in the shooting was charged with the execution of Walter Scott, thankfully, but that doesn't take away the injustice performed by the police. Number 6. Grateful Doe. In 1995, Eric Hager picked up a young hitchhiker in his van. The van would eventually swerve off the road and hit a tree, ending both passengers. The hitchhiker was too injured to be identified, without ID, but with the band Grateful Dead ticket stubs in his pocket. He was identified as Grateful Doe. Around 20 years later, a redditor named Layla Betts found the cold case online and started digging. She eventually started a Grateful Doe subreddit where others joined in the hunt for answers. Eventually, photo reconstructions and a chance message from someone who turned out to be the victim's former roommate led to Jason Callahan's mom, who confirmed her son went missing after he left to follow the Grateful Dead's tour in '95. That turned into DNA confirmation. After 20 years, Jason Callahan was finally put to rest, thanks in large to Betts and the Reddit community who'd backed her dogged curiosity. Number 5. Hit and run. In recent years, a user named Meatheaded posted a photo of a piece of a headlight he'd found at the scene of a hit and run, along with the question, any idea what it belongs to? Some 435 comments later, users eventually pinpointed it as a piece of a gray 1991 Cadillac Brougham, and Meatheaded did the rest. I sent a link of my findings, thanks to you guys, to the auto theft unit. So you guys know, in the original accident, the suspect was identified after he was seen yelling out the window that the car was stolen, but we could never find the car. So not only will he go down for several traffic crimes, but it looks like auto theft as well, assuming the damage matches. You guys rock. Number 4, Obsessed. When the media serves up unsolved mysteries like the podcast Serial or the Netflix series Making an Executioner, leave it to Reddit to take up the charge of finishing the job, or at least talking about it a lot. Making an Executioner's subreddit has almost 65,000 subscribers and Serial's almost has 51,000. Both forums are full of theories, speculation, and even some on-the-ground reporting, like guided video tours of the locations mentioned in Serial. But nothing new was uncovered, and these unsanctioned investigations gave a lot of police officers and reporters pause. How can we be sure 50,000 untrained truth seekers will keep ethics in mind when digging for answers? We can't. Siblings of both Hae-Min Lee, the victim at the center of Serial's story, and Adnan Syed, the man convicted of executing her, have intervened online, reminding sleuths that they're dealing with real people, real families, and real lives. But as the saying goes, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Number 3, Subway Cyphers. It sounds like a plot from a bad spy movie. A mysterious person hands an ordinary subway rider a note and a $50 bill and then disappears into the crowd. The note is a coded message, but the subway rider is no spy or secret agent. So how to decode it? Enlist Reddit readers, that's how. The ordinary man Reddit user Delver of Secrets told his fellow Reddit friends via a post that he got a note and a $50 bill from a raggedy looking man on the subway. The note was a grid of letters on the front, and on the back it contained 2 rows of letters. Some of the letters were in Hebrew and Russian. The first message said, "There's plenty more money to make. Figure this out and prepare to meet July 19th, 56th and 6th hot dog stand outside Rue 57 Cafe. Ask for Mr. Input." After the Redditors decoded that message though, Delver of Secrets said another message came, also encrypted, that said, "You have managed to find the message with the help of friends. You changed the rules, now so will I. July 12, 4 p.m. at 6.5 and 56th, and tell him you are the last." The second message came from a Redditor called Hobo Man, and other Redditors noted that the username led to an IP address at a military base in Arizona, one that specializes in intelligence training. Number 2, Brad Willman. Willman identifies himself as a private computer cop, and previously used the aliases Garby and Omnipotent. In the late 1990s, Willman began tracking and investigating people who downloaded predatory content from the internet. At some time before 2000, Willman devised a Trojan horse, a type of computer program that he used to conduct his investigations. The Trojan horse was posted to websites of interest to predators in a way that it appeared to be a picture file attached to a message, but was actually a program file. When a visitor to the predatory website downloaded the file, the visitor unwittingly downloaded the Trojan horse, and would typically be unaware that it was running on his or her computer. Willman had no control over who chose to download the Trojan horse. Once it had been downloaded, Willman could access, search, and retrieve files from the infected computer. Willman stated, "My whole intent, after the program started working as I expected it to, was to help." Willman estimated that his Trojan horse gave him access to between 2,000 to 3,000 computers that had been used to visit websites of interest to predators, including those of police officers, military personnel, social workers, priests, and judges. It's possible he used Reddit to get some help. Number 1. Sean Power. An Ottawa man who tracked his stolen laptop to a bar in New York City became a Twitter sensation overnight after some of his followers on the social networking website went to the location and confronted the man allegedly using his computer. Sean Power said his MacBook was stolen 3 days ago in New York. At first, he forgot that he had installed a free tracking program called Prey 6 months ago. But when he remembered about the software a couple days later, he set about to track his computer down. Power began chronicling his efforts on Twitter some night and started using Prey's capabilities to gather information on the man who was in possession of his computer, including a picture taken with the computer's built-in camera. Not only did I have his face, but I also had a screenshot of what the person was doing. So over the next hour and a half, I had him logging into his Skype account, logging into his Gmail. Power told CBC News. I even had his bank account with the total amount of money that he had. I guess he just didn't realize that this was happening. At number 10, Atsumi Yoshikubo. Yoshikubo, a Japanese psychiatrist, was last seen on the morning of October 22, 2014, walking along the Ingram Trails in a wooded area on the northern outskirts of Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Canada. Her disappearance was not noted until 3 days later, when she had failed to check out of her hotel and the staff found her luggage, all packed in her room. An intense search both by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and concerned local residents over the next few days was called off after a week when the RCMP announced that their investigation had led them to conclude that she came to Yellowknife with the intent to disappear into the wilderness, although she had bought a return ticket to Japan and souvenirs. 10 months later, a hunter discovered some of her personal effects along with human remains in the bush off the highway. On April 14, 2016, those remains were positively identified as Yoshikubo. Although the hunter found remains, it's possible she's still out there, and the RCMP just wanted to cover it up to make the public less worried about disappearances. Maybe it'll be solved this year. Number 9. Susan Walsh. Susan Walsh was an American writer and freelance journalist who disappeared outside her home in Nutley, New Jersey on July 16, 1996. Her disappearance was widely publicized into the late 1990s, especially after several newspapers and media outlets published articles implying that her disappearance was potentially linked to the Russian Mafia or New York City's underground vampire community, both subjects that she had investigated while writing for the Village Voice. On July 16, 1996, Walsh left her apartment complex in Nutley, New Jersey, which she shared with her son. Her estranged husband, Mark, lived below them. Walsh had left to run errands and make a telephone call at a payphone across the street, leaving her son for the time being in the care of his father. It was the last time that Walsh was ever seen. Police were able to eliminate Walsh's ex-husband as a suspect in her disappearance. It was later noted that the page for the entire month of July 1996 was missing from Walsh's calendar in her apartment. Although police had few clues to follow up on in their investigation, rumors circulated that Walsh's disappearance might have been connected to the investigative journalism she had been doing at the time. Number 8. Amy Bechtel. On the morning of the 24th of July, 1997, the 24-year-old left her apartment to run errands. At 2:30 that afternoon, Bechtel was seen at a photo shop. This was the last confirmed sighting of Bechtel. It is believed that she left the photo shop and drove into the Shoshone National Forest to check the course of a 10K race her gym was planning. When her husband returned home at 4:30 p.m., she was not home. By nightfall, he alerted neighbors and the sheriff's department. Bechtel's white Toyota station wagon was found parked off a dirt road in the Shoshone Forest. No trace of Bechtel has been found. By 3 a.m. on July 25, 1997, an extensive search for Bechtel was underway from law enforcement, as well as her husband and the couple's friends and family. By July 27th, police were receiving roughly 1,000 calls per day with tips and potential leads in Bechtel's disappearance. Additionally, various lakes and mines were searched with no results. Number 7. Suzanne Lyle. Lyle was last seen getting off a bus on the campus of the State University of New York at Albany on the night of the 2nd of March 1998. After returning from her job at a nearby shopping mall, her ATM card was used the next afternoon to withdraw money at a convenience store elsewhere in the city. Since then, no signs of her have been found, and foul play has been suspected. Her parents have successfully lobbied for changes in state and federal laws regarding missing person investigations on college campuses, and founded the Center for Hope to support families of the missing. The next morning, March 3rd, Condon, who attended a different college in the Albany area, called Doug and Mary Lyle to tell them Suzanne had not returned to her dorm the night before and was missing. She usually phoned or emailed him after returning from work and had not answered his calls to her dorm room. They called the campus police to formally report her missing, and were told that brief absences were not uncommon for college students, so they should not worry as it was likely that she would soon reappear. She did not reappear. Number 6. Joan Lawrence. Lawrence disappeared in November 1998. She was reported missing by 57-year-old Alan Marshall, a former limo driver who also resided on the lawn farm and had become close with Lawrence. Marshall told police he heard gunshots and saw a backhoe being operated around the time of Lawrence's disappearance. Police obtained a search warrant for the property that December. Despite an extensive search by lake, land, and air, they failed to find Lawrence's body. Notably, half a dozen of her cats had been fatally shot. The Lawn's uncle, Ron Allen, eventually claimed responsibility. The OPP investigation continued, and by July 2000, police had discovered 3 more of Lawn's residents who could not be accounted for: 90-year-old John Semple, 71-year-old John Crofts, and 70-year-old Ralph Grant. Like other Lawn residents, the missing men were marginalized and had been brought to Muskoka from homeless shelters in Toronto. These men's pension checks continued to be cashed, although they had not been seen on the Lawn property or elsewhere. The Lawns had failed to report that they were missing. This led police to uncover a pension check scam and charged David, Walter, Walter's wife Karen, Paul, and Catherine with defrauding the federal government of the benefit money it was providing Semple, Crofts, Grant, and other residents who had passed or were missing. The charges against David and Karen were dropped, but Walter, Catherine, and Paul pled guilty. Number 5. Raisa Rayson. On the evening of the 16th of October 1999, Raisa Rayson was out celebrating with a friend. She called her boyfriend from her mobile phone at 10:18, indicating that she wanted to join him at a house party in the suburbs, if she could get a lift. Before doing so, Rayson and her friend visited a restaurant in the city center. Although aged only 16, they had got in using fake IDs. However, they stayed in the restaurant for only half an hour, leaving when Rayson's friend received a phone call from her boyfriend, inviting her to a party outside Tampere. Rayson's friend received a lift to the party from some friends, but Rayson stayed behind as there was no room for her in the car. Rayson's friend checked to make sure Rayson's phone was charged and gave her some money. The last confirmed sighting of Rayson was from this time at 10:50, near the Sokos department store in central Tampere. After that, there were several unconfirmed reports of someone resembling her. The police believe that CCTV footage from the area also shows her in the city center at around 11:50, an hour after the last confirmed sighting. Because of the EU summit being held in Tampere that day, security had been tightened and there was an increased police presence in the city, with additional police resources brought in from other parts of the country. However, the use of CCTV monitoring was considerably less in 1999 than it is now. Rayson was never found. Number 4. Zeb Quinn. At around 9 p.m. on Sunday, January 2nd, 2000, Zeb Quinn ended his shift at the electronics department of a Walmart in Asheville, North Carolina. At the time, Quinn had been enrolled in an ROTC program. He had plans to travel after work to Leicester with Robert Jason Owens, one of his coworkers, to buy a new car. Quinn met Owens in the Walmart parking lot before they drove separately to look at the vehicle. The 2 men were seen on surveillance footage at a nearby gas station at approximately 9:15 p.m., purchasing sodas at a convenience store. According to Owens, after leaving the gas station, Quinn signaled for him to pull over by flashing his high beams. Quinn told him that he had received a page and needed to return the call. After he returned from using a payphone, Owens described Quinn as frantic. Quinn told him that he needed to cancel their plans and eventually sped off, rear-ending Owens' truck in the process. Hours later, Owens was treated at a hospital for fractured ribs and a head injury that he said he sustained in a second car accident that evening. No accident report was filed with the police. The following afternoon, Quinn's mother, Denise Vlahakis, filed a missing persons report. Number 3. Trevor Deeley. On the 8th of December 2000, Irishman Trevor Deeley disappeared in Dublin. He had been walking home around 4 in the morning from his office's Christmas party and had needed to go to the bank where he worked for an umbrella, as well as to get certain things in order for his shift the next day. The Christmas party was scheduled for Thursday the 7th of December. After drinks in Copperface Jack's and the Hilton Hotel, the party moved to Buck Whaley's nightclub on Lower Leeson Street. Deeley left Buck Whaley's at around 3:25 a.m. There was a heavy storm that night with gusts as high as 60 or 70 miles per hour, and there was also a taxi strike. About 10 minutes after leaving the nightclub, Deeley arrived at his office and was let in after calling security. While in his office, Deeley made a cup of tea and spoke to a colleague, Carl Pender, who was working the night shift. He also checked his emails and wrote a note of things he needed to do at work the following morning. He left the office at 4:03 a.m., taking an umbrella with him, and continued in the direction of Ballsbridge. CCTV footage shows that a man dressed in black was waiting outside the gates of the bank for approximately half an hour before Deeley arrived. When Deeley arrived, they had a brief conversation. 2 minutes after Deeley entered the bank, 2 more men arrived at the gate. While they have since been cleared as colleagues of Deeley, the man in black remains a person of interest. This footage represents the last known sighting of Deeley. Number 2. On a Wednesday afternoon of April 11th, 2001, Perry invited his friend Gina over to his house to help clean the residence as his father, Bob Perry, who had recently been hospitalized, was due to return home. At this same time, 2 other unnamed men were outside the residence working on Bob's car, which needed a new alternator. At approximately 3 p.m., Perry told Gina he was going to take a pair of jumper cables outside to a shed adjacent to the house. This was the last time he was seen. On April 12th, Perry's grandmother, Joanne, stopped by his home and found the house unlocked and deserted. She found this unusual and called the residence periodically over the next several days, but got no answer. Upon calling Perry's mother, Rebecca Clino, she found she had not spoken to him either. Bob was discharged from the hospital several days later than planned, and after his release, he and Clino filed a missing person report on April 17th. Ground search parties were organized by Nottoway County Police within a 15-mile or 24-kilometer radius of the Perry residence. Numerous fields, farms, and abandoned buildings were searched, but the efforts proved fruitless. During a search of the property, police were unable to locate the jumper cables Perry had purportedly left to return in the shed. 2 weeks later, however, they were found just inside the door. Number 1. Kirk Von Ackerman. Von Ackerman was an intelligence officer in the United States Air Force and had previously served as a Russian linguist in the United States Army. Among his roles in the Air Force was that of former Deputy Director of Intelligence for NATO operations in Kosovo in 1999, where he had been decorated for operations behind enemy lines. He was employed by Ultra Services of Istanbul, Turkey, when he disappeared in Iraq on October 9, 2003. His car was found empty on a road between Kirkuk and Tikrit, with his equipment and $40,000 still inside. On December 14, 2003, his colleague Ryan G. Manelik was gunned down just after leaving Camp Anaconda. The major procurement fraud unit in the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Command is investigating. The CID had not given a firm conclusion on when or where Von Ackerman may have passed away, although there is a presumption that it may have happened on October 9, 2003, in a botched kidnapping attempt. They still, however, refuse to give out information on this case, which is still active. Von Ackerman's body was never found. The Defense POW/MIA accounting agency lists Von Ackerman as one of 5 remaining missing servicemen or DoD contractors since the onset of Operation Desert Storm.